The alien queen's whisper. The palace was broken, filled with smoke and fire, its high walls shaking under the echo of weapons. Shadows moved across the shattered floor, broken glass scattered everywhere. The once bright throne hall of the alien empire now looked like a battlefield, a place where death walked slowly. In the middle of the destruction stood a human soldier, tall, armored, and calm. His rifle was ready, his eyes never blinking, his every step full of control. Beside him, hidden behind the last broken pillar of her throne, stood the alien queen, her face pale, her crown falling from her head. She looked at him with fear and confusion, her voice shaking as she whispered, "Take me now, human." Her words were soft, desperate, not romantic but heavy with meaning. She was not asking for love, not asking for touch. She was asking for safety, for someone to claim her life so that no enemy could. The human turned his head slowly, his rifle raised higher. His voice was firm, sharp, like iron against fire. "Later," he said. "I guard first." The queen's eyes widened. She had never heard words like these. In her world, warriors always demanded, always took first and protected later. But this human was different. He chose duty over desire, and that made him more dangerous than any enemy outside the hall. The sound of heavy boots came closer, echoing through the broken gates. The queen pressed herself against the cold pillar, her breath fast. The human soldier lifted his weapon, pointing it toward the shadows, every muscle in his body ready, yet his face calm. He did not look at the queen again. He only watched the darkness. Outside, voices of alien assassins whispered in their strange tongue. They laughed, thinking the queen was weak, thinking the human was alone, but the queen could feel it. This soldier was not like others. He was a wall, a storm hidden inside armor. She whispered again, her voice trembling. "Why do you protect me? You are not my guard, not my people." The soldier did not answer at once. He stepped forward, scanning the shadows. Then, without turning, he replied, "Because I gave my word." "That is enough." The queen's heart shook. In her empire, promises were cheap. Words were broken easily. But this human treated his word like a weapon, like a shield, and that made her believe he could fight the whole galaxy if he had to. Suddenly, the main doors trembled, dust falling from the roof. The assassins were breaking in, their claws scratching against steel. The queen closed her eyes, ready for death. But the human only tightened his grip on his rifle. He whispered not to her but to himself, "They will not touch her. Not while I breathe." The doors exploded, light flashing, and shadows poured in. Dozens of alien soldiers stepped into the hall. Armored, armed, hungry for blood, they saw the queen, weak and cornered, and they laughed. But then their eyes fell on the lone human, standing tall in the smoke, not afraid, not moving back. Instead, he raised his rifle and fired the first shot. The sound was thunder, echoing through the broken palace. The queen gasped as the first assassin fell. The others roared, charging forward. But the human did not step away. He stood like a wall. Every shot, every move, was perfect. He was outnumbered, but he fought like one man carrying the strength of 1,000. The queen's breath caught in her throat. Her world was burning, but for the first time she felt safe, because the human had said only one thing. "Later, I guard first." The whisper of the queen, the calm voice of the human, and the thunder of battle mixed together. The palace shook, the smoke grew thicker, and the war inside the hall became fire itself. The queen pressed her back to the wall, her heart beating faster than ever before. Every second felt like a century. Every scream of the assassins was met by the sharp strike of the human's weapon. She realized that the galaxy was wrong about humans. They were not weak, not lost, not careless. They were something far more dangerous. And as the smoke filled the throne hall, the queen whispered one last time, her voice breaking, "Human, what are you?" But the soldier did not answer. His rifle spoke for him. Each shot was his answer. Each fallen enemy was his promise, and still he whispered to himself, "Later, I guard first." The hall shook once more as a massive shadow entered from the broken gate. A warlord larger than all others, his blades glowing red. The queen's eyes widened in fear. But the human only stepped forward, calm as ever, and for a heartbeat the galaxy held its breath. The battle had only just begun. The broken throne hall. The great doors of the palace shook again, pieces of steel falling to the floor. Smoke drifted through the air, mixing with the smell of blood and fire. The once shining throne hall of the alien empire was now nothing but ruins. But in the ruins stood one human, alone, his rifle glowing hot with fire. The queen clutched the broken edge of her throne, her hands trembling. She had never seen a single soldier fight like this before. Every shot from the human's weapon struck with perfect aim. Every step he took was filled with strength. He did not fight like a man. He fought like a wall that refused to fall. Outside the doors, alien assassins gathered in greater numbers. Their voices grew louder, their weapons sharper. They laughed in their strange tongue, mocking the human. Only one? Only one stands in our way. But the human soldier did not answer their laughter. His silence was more dangerous than words. He checked his rifle, the sound of metal clicking in the quiet hall, and when the queen whispered in fear, "They are many." "You are only one," he replied in a calm voice. "One is enough." The queen stared at him, her eyes wide. She had lived with warriors her whole life. Princes, lords, champions of alien empires, but none had ever said words like these. None had ever believed in such strength. The walls shook as the doors finally broke open. Dozens of assassins rushed inside, their blades shining in the firelight. The queen screamed, hiding behind her throne, but the human stepped forward, his rifle raised. His voice steady as he said, "Stay behind me." "Do not move," the assassins charged. The hall turned into a storm of metal and fire. The human fired again and again, each shot striking true. One assassin fell, then another, then another. But for everyone that fell, two more came. The queen could not believe it. This human was surrounded, yet he did not fall. The sound of his rifle echoed like thunder. The flashes of his weapon lit the hall like lightning. His armor was scratched, blood stained his arm. But still he fought, still he stood, the queen whispered again. "Why?" "Why do you fight for me?" He answered without turning his head. "Because I must." That is the human way. The assassins grew angry, their shouts filling the air. They wanted the queen alive, but the human dead. They wanted to break him, to show the galaxy that one man was nothing. But the galaxy was wrong as the human fought. The queen began to understand humans did not fight for power. They did not fight for glory. They fought because they chose to protect, and that choice made them unstoppable. Suddenly, a heavy boom shook the ground. The queen looked up in terror, through the broken roof of her palace. Massive shadows fell from the sky. The enemy had brought war machines. Armored beasts of steel, they entered the hall, claws scraping the marble floor, their eyes glowing red with rage. The queen gasped, "Even you cannot fight them. No one can—" But the human only reloaded his weapon. He looked at the machines, then back at the queen, his voice steady as stone. "I will hold this hall. Even if I fall." The machines roared, the assassins cheered. The ground trembled under their march. The queen's heart raced, her breath short. But the human stood taller, stronger, the fire of earth in his eyes, and then with calm hands, he lifted his weapon, not in fear, not in desperation, but in promise, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Let them come." The queen felt her knees weaken. For the first time in her life, she believed in something more powerful than her crown. She believed in the human standing before her, the man who said, "One is enough." The assassins attacked again. The machines roared forward. The throne hall became a storm of fire and steel. And yet through the chaos, the queen's eyes stayed locked on him, the human who guarded her not for reward, not for command, but because he had given his word. The battle grew darker, the shadows thicker, and as the queen clutched her chest in fear, she whispered to herself, "If one human can stand against all of this, then perhaps humanity is the strength the galaxy has been waiting for." The ground shook again as the largest of the alien war machines stepped into the hall. It raised its weapon, a massive blade glowing with deadly light. The assassins cheered, believing the human would finally fall. But the soldier only tightened his grip, and in the middle of the broken throne hall, he spoke words that froze the queen's breath. "This hall does not belong to them, not while I live." And with those words, the fight began again. Fiercer, louder, more powerful. The galaxy outside did not yet know. But inside this broken hall, the future had already changed, because one human refused to move. The stand of one human. The throne hall was no longer just a palace, it had become a war zone. Broken walls, burning fires, and endless shadows. The queen clung to her broken throne, her eyes wide, and in front of her stood the one human who refused to fall. The assassins circled him, their blades flashing in the smoke. The giant war machine stepped closer, its glowing blade raised high. The hall shook under its heavy steps. The queen whispered, no one can fight that, but the human only stood taller. His rifle heavy, his armor dented, his blood dripping. Yet his voice was steady, calm, like unshaken stone. If it bleeds, I can break it. The queen gasped at his words. How could one man be so fearless? Was it madness, or was it the secret strength of humanity? Before she could think, the machine charged, its blade slicing the air. The assassin screamed, rushing in behind it. The queen screamed too, hiding behind the shattered throne. But the human did not step back. He ran forward, his rifle blazing. Bullets tore through the first line of assassins. Flames burst from their armor, their screams filling the hall. The machine's blade came down like thunder. But the human rolled aside, sparks flying as stone shattered where he once stood. The queen's heart raced. Every move of the human looked impossible. He was outnumbered, outmatched. But he was not outwilled, that was the difference. Humans did not stop even when they should. The machine roared, swinging again. The human climbed its arm, jumping onto its massive frame. With his knife, he cut through cables, sparks flashing around him. The queen gasped as the monster screamed, its blade swinging wildly, crushing its own soldiers. The assassins panicked, not knowing who to fear more. Their own war machine or the human who fought it like a storm. Finally, with one last strike, the human shoved a grenade deep inside the machine's chest. He leapt away as the monster exploded. The ground shook, fire lit the hall. Pieces of steel flew everywhere. The queen covered her face, her crown falling to the floor. When the smoke cleared, the machine was gone. Nothing but broken metal remained. And there, standing in the flames, was the human, rifle in hand. His armor broken, his body bleeding, but his eyes still burning with fire. The assassins froze. Their laughter gone, their courage lost. One man had destroyed what they called undefeatable. The queen's voice trembled. He fights like a god. But the human turned his head slowly. His voice was sharp. No, I fight like a soldier. Nothing more. The assassins roared again. Desperate, they rushed him, a sea of blades and claws. The human planted his boots on the ground. He became unmovable. Every shot from his rifle struck true. Every strike of his knife cut deeper than steel. He was surrounded, but he was the center of the storm. The queen could not take her eyes away. Her empire had fallen, her army scattered, but here, one human stood as if he carried the weight of a whole world, and in his strength she felt a strange safety. Something she had never felt even with her guards or her generals. The hall became darker, filled with smoke and screams. The queen pressed her back against the throne. Her heart whispered one truth she could no longer deny. The galaxy had underestimated humanity. They thought humans were weak, but humans were fire. And fire only grew stronger when surrounded by darkness. The battle raged on. The human fought without pause. Every assassin that fell only made the next hesitate. And the queen saw it. Fear was now in the eyes of her enemies. Fear of one man, one Terran suddenly above the broken roof. A new light appeared. The queen looked up, her lips parting in shock. Dozens of massive shadows moved in the sky. Engines roared like thunder from the heavens. The stars themselves seemed to break open. The human paused, looking up as well. And for the first time, he allowed himself a small smile. The queen whispered, trembling, "What? What is that?" The soldier lowered his rifle, his voice heavy. "That is Earth's answer." And then the ceiling of the hall shook as the first Terran dropships pierced the sky. Their guns lit the horizon. Their banners of Earth burned against the stars. The assassin screamed in terror. The queen gasped, tears falling down her face. Because now she understood. This was not just one man, this was humanity. And humanity had arrived. The soldier stood taller, his voice cutting through the chaos like iron. "Your empire is not lost, Majesty." Not while humans stand. The queen stared at him, her heart racing, and for the first time, she felt something stronger than fear. She felt hope, a hope born from one human stand, a stand that would echo across the galaxy. And as the Terran fleet roared above the broken palace, the galaxy outside trembled, for they realized the same truth as the queen. One human was enough to hold the line, but an army of them had just arrived. The human war fleet appears. The sky above the broken palace was no longer silent. It roared with the thunder of engines. Flashes of light broke through the clouds of smoke, and massive shadows filled the heavens. The Terran fleet had arrived. The assassins who once laughed now froze in terror. Their glowing blades shook in their hands. Even the strongest among them stepped back. Because everyone in the galaxy knew the stories of Earth's warships. The ships that never came unless the galaxy itself was about to change. The Queen stood behind the shattered throne, her breath heavy, her eyes wide as she looked at the sky through the broken ceiling. The war machines, the assassins, all of them seemed small now, because above them loomed something greater than empires. The Terran dreadnoughts, each one larger than a city, each one carrying fire that could burn worlds. The human soldier did not turn to look at the Queen, but his calm voice reached her ears. "Majesty." "Stand tall. You are safe now." The words struck her deeper than any crown or title ever had safe. In her own palace, she had never felt safe. But beside one human and under the shadow of his fleet, she finally believed it. The assassins panicked, shouting in fear. Some tried to retreat, but the soldier raised his weapon again. "Too late," he said, and his rifle thundered once more. Each shot a message, each shot a warning. The galaxy had woken up humanity, and now humanity had answered. Above, the dreadnoughts moved into formation, their hulls black as night, their engines glowing like suns. One voice echoed across the hall from the soldiers' comm. "All units, secure the Queen." "Earth answers the call," the Queen gasped. So many ships, so many soldiers, all for her. Her people had abandoned her. Her generals had betrayed her, but humanity had come. And they came not for gold, not for power. They came because one soldier had said, "I guard first." The ground shook as the first Terran dropships landed outside the palace. Heavy boots pounded the broken marble floors. Dozens of human soldiers rushed in, their weapons glowing. They fought with the same calm fury as the one who had held the hall alone. The assassins screamed as they were pushed back. The palace that had once been filled with fear was now filled with fire and discipline. The Queen stepped forward. Trembling, she whispered to herself, "The galaxy was blind. They thought humans were scattered, but they are a storm." The human soldier reloaded, his armor scarred. He stood like iron. Even with reinforcements all around, his eyes stayed sharp. Because his duty was not finished. And when the Queen looked at him, he nodded once. "Stay behind me. The hall is not yet clean." The assassins gathered their last strength. Their leader stepped forward, a warlord with armor made of dark steel, his voice deep, filled with hate. "You think your ships will save you, human? This world will burn before you win." The Queen's heart stopped. She knew the warlord spoke of the Empire's last weapon, a device hidden under the palace. A weapon that could destroy not just the throne, but the entire planet. She gasped, her voice breaking. They will use the planet killer." The Terran comms flared with static, but the soldier's voice cut through. "Then we take it before they do." The Queen looked at him, her voice trembling. "You cannot reach it in time. Even your fleet cannot stop it." But the soldier's eyes burned with fire, his words heavy. "Humanity has faced extinction before, Majesty. We never run. We break what must be broken," the warlord roared. Raising his weapon, the assassins charged one last time. The hall shook as battle returned, fiercer than before. But above them, the dreadnoughts opened their guns. Beams of light tore through the sky. The entire city trembled under the wrath of Earth. The Queen covered her ears, the sound shaking her bones. She had seen wars, she had seen invasions, but nothing compared to this. The Terran fleet was not fighting a battle. They were rewriting the balance of the galaxy. The human soldier fought his way toward the warlord, every step cutting down another assassin, every breath filled with fire. The Queen's eyes never left him because she knew now. This was not just a guard, not just a soldier. This was the will of humanity standing before her. And as the warlord swung his glowing blade, the soldier raised his rifle one last time. Their clash shook the throne hall like a storm. Steel against steel, fire against fire. The Queen's whisper trembled through the smoke. "Human, win for us all." The battle for the planet's heart had begun. And outside, the Terran fleet moved closer, dreadnoughts turning their guns toward the enemy weapon. The galaxy watched, and the galaxy held its breath. Because if the humans won here, the universe would never be the same again. Duty before desire. The palace shook as fire rained from the skies. The Terran dreadnoughts unleashed their fury. Their cannons tore the heavens apart, but inside the throne hall, the battle still burned. The warlord roared, his glowing blade cutting through the air. Every strike shook the walls. The human soldier met him head-on, his rifle empty, his blade drawn. Steel against steel, sparks filling the darkness. The queen clutched the broken throne. Her heart racing faster with every clash. She had seen battles before, but never one where the fate of a world hung on a single man. She whispered softly, "Please, human, do not fall." The warlord laughed, his voice echoing like thunder. "You are only flesh." "I am steel." "Your kind cannot carry the weight of empires." But the human soldier pushed forward, his voice sharp and steady. "Then I will break your empire with flesh alone." Their blades collided again and again. The floor cracked beneath their steps. The assassins around them hesitated, because they could see it. Their leader was not fighting a weak human. He was fighting something stronger, something unstoppable. The queen's eyes filled with tears. She remembered her whisper in the first moments of fear. "Take me now, human." But he had refused, he had said. "Later, I guard first." And now she understood this was why, duty before desire, honor before power, the warlord struck hard. The human fell to one knee, blood on his lips. The queen gasped, her hand reaching out as if her touch could save him. But the soldier rose again, his eyes burning brighter than before. "No more steps back," he said. "This hall is mine to hold." With a final strike, he drove his blade through the warlord's chest. The giant alien screamed, his weapon falling from his hands. The hall trembled as he crashed to the ground. The assassins froze in horror. Their leader was dead. Killed by the one they mocked, killed by a human. The queen covered her mouth, her heart shaking with relief and awe. The soldier pulled his blade free, blood running down his armor, his breath heavy but unbroken. And then the comms in his helmet roared. "Terran fleet to ground forces. The enemy planet killer is armed. You have minutes before detonation." The queen's blood ran cold, she whispered, trembling. "If it fires, this world will be ash." The soldier looked at her once, then at the sky above, and his voice carried no fear. "Then we break it before it fires." He turned, leading the Terran soldiers deeper into the palace. The queen tried to follow, but he stopped her with a glance. "Stay. You are the heart. If you fall, hope falls too." Her lips trembled. "Human, will you return?" For the first time, he looked at her fully, his eyes soft beneath the fire. "If duty allows it," he said, and then he was gone. The queen stood in silence as the ground shook. Every explosion echoed through the halls. She could hear the battle, the screams of the enemy, the thunder of Terran weapons, and somewhere in the chaos, the voice of her human guard, still fighting, still refusing to fall. The palace ceiling cracked, dust falling like rain. The queen whispered to herself, "If one man can carry the weight of worlds, then perhaps humanity carries the weight of the galaxy." Minutes felt like hours. The world seemed ready to break, until finally, the comms roared again. "Planet killer destroyed. Earth stands victorious." The queen fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face. The palace was ruined, her empire shattered, but she was alive. Alive because of him, alive because humanity had come. The doors opened once more, and there he was, the human soldier. His armor broken, his face scarred, but his eyes still steady. She rose, walking toward him, her voice soft. "Now, human, will you claim me?" He looked at her, silent for a long moment. Then he lowered his weapon, and his answer was not what she expected. "My claim is not your crown, not your throne. It is your freedom." "That is enough." The queen's eyes filled with tears. She had known rulers who demanded everything, but this man demanded nothing, and that made him greater than all of them. The Terran soldiers saluted. The fleet above pulled back, and for the first time, the queen bowed her head not as a ruler, but as someone who finally understood. She whispered, "Then take this, human. Not as a claim, but as my vow. Your people will never stand alone." The soldier nodded once, and in that ruined throne hall a new bond was born, not of conquest, but of trust, not of chains, but of choice. And as the galaxy watched from afar, they whispered in fear and wonder. If one human soldier could break empires, what would an entire species do next? The answer would echo through the stars forever, because humanity had shown its truth, duty before desire, guardians before conquerors, and the galaxy would never forget it.